Or Simons, this is my channel, Springboard Thought. Today I'm doing the tag, the end of days tag from Bob the Booker, who did this on December 15th. It's a tag he created. I think most people know of Bob already. He seems to be quite popular for good reason. He has a really good, I would say even adept way of summing up a book without giving out spoilers that, aside from the synopsis and summary, which is just marketing copy, he just sort of like gets it to the very heart of what the actual book is about and gives you what its strengths and weaknesses are as he sees it. There's a few short prompts here, all of which of course revolve around End of Days. First one is Prophecy, a book that contains a prophecy or promise, whether it comes to pass or not. This made me think immediately of The Darkness That Comes Before, which is the first book in the Prince of Nothing trilogy. This is an excellent dark fantasy book, which has a prophecy in it that is kind of trite in that it's essentially saying that somebody is going to come and ruin the world slash society slash civilization as we know it. This has happened once before, it's going to happen again. And we follow a protagonist who believes himself to be just like all of them in all of fantasy books, sort of a chosen one, very like adept at everything, kind of a chosen one type deal. And he believes himself to be right and just and has a very specific secret, I guess, kind of mission that he's trying to accomplish in civilization, and where he has come from is a mystery. This book is really interesting and complex to me because it directly examines misogyny in all its forms. So Kellis, and though he is a protagonist and hero of the story, is definitely a proliferator of misogyny in some ways. And then there's the outright, darkness, which is the literal toxicity that is ingrained in society and coming for everybody, and could that be the end of the world as well? It is an excellent series, especially the first 3 books, and then after that there is 4 or 5 books that make up in total, combined with this, to be the second Apocalypse. I could have easily used that for the second prompt, which is Apocalypse, a book that talks about the end of the world. I'm going to go with something I've been reading lately, which is Hellboy. This is a library edition. I don't know if you can tell just how huge this is. Maybe with my head next to it, you'll be able to tell. The second story here is The Right Hand of Doom. If you've seen the Hellboy movies, you kind of know what's going on. There's a similar sort of prophecy in which Hellboy may or may not bring about the end of the world. And he's just, trying to live his life while these forces are trying to poke him into being a bad dude. So there's a lot of occult stuff, witchiness, mythology. It's a more, I guess, sort of trite example of the apocalypse thing and kind of a literal interpretation of it, like it'll literally destroy the world. But I think it's just like a overall really fun read. The next prompt is Winter, a book that talks about the end of the year and or icy and cold conditions. For this one, I'm going to talk about A River Runs Through It. This is an excellent book, one of my all-time favorites. It usually comes compiled into works of other stories as well, so this is like a bit of a different edition if you're wondering why it doesn't look like all the other ones coming around. This book has a very specific passage that I think is like quintessential to it. Like many fly fishermen in western Montana, where the summer days are almost Arctic in length, I often do not start fishing until the cool of the evening. Then, in the Arctic half-light of the canyon, all existence fades to a being with my soul and memories and the sounds of the big Blackfoot River and a 4-count rhythm and the hope that a fish will rise. Eventually, all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. The river was cut by the world's great flood and runs over rocks from the basement of time. On some of these rocks are timeless raindrops. Under the rocks are the words, and some of the words are theirs. And I am haunted by waters. The next prompt is Nighttime, a book that focuses on the night or has some interesting scenes in the dark. There is a whole bunch of them in Sharp Objects. This is a book about a girl or a woman who has to go back to her small hometown, in which there's tumultuous relationships and memories that spiral her into like a sort of dark, foreboding mood, and unearths all of her like traumatic memories and her patterns of her childhood repeat, and she sort of regresses into childhood essentially. And there's a lot of scenes in this that take place in the night, but there's one in particular in which early on in her spiral she goes and I think it's at a baseball field or close to it. There's a woman in white that appears to be wearing like a night dress that is looking at her and walks into the forest, and the interplay between what she has just seen and what she was thinking about and talking about before is just completely perfect. The TV show is actually surprisingly good for this as well, if you don't want to consume the book. It is really good at making jarring cuts into her memories and really drive home the themes of the book. In some ways, it's superior to the book when it's doing that kind of stuff. Next prompt is Later Life, a book that talks about aging or predominantly features older characters. A perfunctory one for me right now is the Thursday Murder Club, a retirement community of friends who solve murders, but I'm actually going to say Brindlewood Bay right now because a friend of mine wrote and designed this game. It's a tabletop role-playing game, and it is a mashup of the Golden Girls meets Murder, She Wrote. So you're all older women at a retirement community in a bay, and you're, again, solving murders. And it's a very interesting game because you, together with all your other players, emergently solve the mystery. You're given clues, but the way the process works is that all of the ladies come together and theorize about the mystery, and you, just as a player at a meta level, contextualize all of the clues in such a way, an arrangement, if you will, of who had done it and why. So it's a very different process. There's no tabletop game that I know of it that uses that method, and it's just a fantastic game. I have an actual play of it on my feed right now, so you can actually watch me play it with the guy who designed it and some other friends and see if it's for you or not. Until the End of My Days, a book that you think will stick with you for life and or that you can imagine rereading later and still getting a lot from. The Pale King, I think. This is a book that I read actually quite quickly, but it is so interesting in its themes, and it's very subjective because it was never actually finished. This is like, I can't remember, I think they said a half or 3/4 of the actual manuscript, and then the editor compiled it into like a cohesive narrative as much as he could. So you have to extrapolate where you think this book is going based on the stuff that has come before, and it's just steeped in stuff that is so interesting. It's kind of a meditation on boredom. It's on subverting the hero archetype of our days, in which these heroes are venerated for usually very masculine things. And this instead puts the heroic qualities or the reframing of what heroism is on people doing the boring, mindless, mind-numbingly monotonous tasks that society requires of them. In this case, quite predominantly the postal service. And the structure actually mirrors the boredom. There are pages that are going to be quite annoying for some people because it's just pages and pages and pages of full block text without breaks. And though it is still well written and you can follow it well enough, he attempts to put the reader in the same sort of mind space as what the themes are and what the character is actually feeling at the time. There's some mind-blowingly good dialogue in this book as well, where I put down the book and just thought about what was being said and how good the interaction was. And then it also sort of has a surrealist component to it, where these people, almost in a, if you've played the video game Control, these people have, I don't know, some sort of paranormal properties that are assigned to them when they reach these sort of levels of boredom, where they're doing tasks so repetitively, they become sort of transcendent in their tasks, and in that way are sort of glorified in the same sort of heroicism of mythological figures and stuff like that. So I definitely need to reread it to understand it a little bit better, but when I first read it, it blew my mind. It was fantastic. So I can't wait to get back to it again at some point. And then the last one is At the End of the Day, a cliche or trope that annoys you. Number one is always using sexual assault for mere plot advancement. It is 99.9% always contrived and always stupid, but especially in Neil Stephenson's case. A cliche that I hate, but Sally Rooney does well, is miscommunications, very simple miscommunications usually, in terms of generating melodrama, drama in general, or just like creating any kind of conflict where there seemingly is none, especially in romance or relationships. Most often probably in young adults, where it kind of feels like people imply almost quintessentially that young adults can never speak to each other. This is also characterized so much as like the straights are not okay, which I think is very funny and kind of fitting. And on the flip side, in the hands of a good writer such as Sally Rooney, stuff like that becomes the actual focus of the book. The subtle ways that we show our love for a person or unintentionally slight them, and the way that it is shown but not perceived by the other person is just really fascinating to me, and it becomes like something more innovative and an iteration on that trope. And that's it. So I'll tag a few people to do this. I don't know how many people have already done this or not. AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, I don't think they've done that tag yet. I don't know. I have a terrible memory for these things. Kim at Middle of the Book March, Brandon's Bookshelf, Bookworm Adventure Girl, Lindy's Magpie Reads, new channel, Mark Nash, I don't think has done this either, Scallydandling About the Books, Gem of Books. If you see this and you haven't been tagged, feel free to do it, of course. The more people, the merrier. And if you saw this video and are doing the tag because of it, of course comment and I'll come and take a look. And otherwise I will see you next video.